So let's get this moving. There we go. All right, so Don in question 12 follows up and says, I have become aware of a very large variation in contact with individuals. The Confederation, I'm assuming, uses a form of contact to awaken, as you say, wanderers. And could you give me general examples of the methods used by the Confederation to awaken or partially awaken the wanderers they are contacting? Really good question. Ross says the methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience which has meaning for the entity. Many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. The approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you are aware. So, let me try to give you an illustration or a diagram, rather, of how I see this happening in general. We're talking about the positive contact with wanderers to awaken them. So, chances are, if you're here, that you've had some sort of experience of some kind that kind of ignited you to seek, to follow your heart, to question things and so on. What we call awakening, awakening from the dream. There are many dreams, there are many levels of the dream, but this first awakening is, the pillar stone. Questioning, finding truth. And so the diagram that I want to make is that there is the energy, I want to call it energy, the positive energy, which is attracted to the wanderer because of its vibration. This positive energy manifests as thoughts, as perceptions, as images. And of course, this generates feelings in the individual. So this positive energy is really attracted. However, there is the paramount free will of the entity, which makes up the subconscious mind, mostly, and the conscious attention of the individual. And so there needs to be a sort of, if you didn't call me, I won't be there. But if you're subconsciously calling me, then something must happen. And this is where it gets sort of mixed with the Orion group, possibly with contact and what we call close encounters. Now remember, these words that we were using back in the 80s, they were referring to the L&L research was pretty advanced for their age, of course, for their era, but there were still obviously leftovers of phrases that to me don't make much sense now, like close encounter. Funny enough, Ram mentioned that joke that, are not all encounters close when everything is one, or something like that. Ram made a better joke. Last video. Go watch it. But in my view, close encounter to me kind of reverberates the idea that there are UFOs that land and somehow we get in contact with the physical separation that is between the UFO and the ET coming, walking down that brilliant light and so on. That to me is what close encounter sounds, and I want to kind of demystify that by using this diagram, especially us who have a clearer understanding of how things work energetically, and called by the will of the individual. So we were in the diagram of positive energy, in this case, being attracted to the entity that somehow calls for it. And as it calls for it subconsciously, it will sort of manifest. And this is what we would call close encounter, which is funny because actually Ross says the approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you're aware. I love the word syndrome there because it seems to be like a specific type of contact that, and this is why I like to also put under the umbrella, I had a mystical experience. I had a revelatory dream. I was meditating and had a huge download. I took psychedelics and had what a trip on, into space and all of this. I mean, there's a myriad of mystical experiences, let's just call it that are triggered. And I've had several of these, actually. I had the dream type, I had the psychedelic one, I've had it in meditation. I mean, it happens often. So to me, it's just this permeability that exists between your subconscious and the roots of the mind that bring about this positive energy that is always saying the same thing. If you were to listen to all the accounts of mystical experiences under the umbrella that I just talked about, you will hear that the common ground is always, I felt loved, I felt one with the universe, I felt that entities wanted to help me, and so on. Why do we see entities? Why do we see forms? Because it's our subconscious that is creating these forms. And these molds, let's call the subconscious like a mold for the images and perceptions that we're going to have. These molds will obviously shape our experience. And so when we finally get the permeability to this energy to flow into our subconscious, we get this flashing experience. And this is what would incite the awakening. Now listen to what Ross says. The methods used to awaken wanderers are varied. So, under the umbrella, there are many ways in which we can permeate your subconscious, basically. The center of each approach is the entrance into the conscious and subconscious in such a way as to avoid causing fear and to maximize the potential for an understandable subjective experience, which has meaning for the entity. Now check the words. I just think it's just beautiful. It's just, this is a mystical experience for me. Check. When they say conscious and subconscious, okay, they're entering the conscious and subconscious in such a way, first, to avoid fear. Because when something unknown comes to us, we're usually afraid. So, I mean, the expertise, obviously, that these entities use, or this energy, let's just call it energy, uses, this intelligent energy, which we can call entities, come into our subconscious, are so refined as to not cause fear, because that is the Orion Group's tactic, and we'll get to that. So, for an understandable subjective experience, it's key. If you don't understand what's happening, then it's just going to be which some people actually have, and to me that is Orion Group or negative oriented, which is meant to confuse you. And subjective experience, again, remember when I said the mold, your subconscious is the mold for the shape that it's going to take? Well, that's a subjective experience, it's yours. Because if you believe in elves, you'll see elves. And you have a propensity for it. Like Terence McKenna used to see machine elves, with his DMT experiences. And you know what? Terence McKenna didn't have to believe in elves, as a belief system, but rather, some sort of bias towards, seeing elves, which is completely plausible. So that is the mold that is creating the shapes, images, and forms in your experience, in your mystical experience. All right, so many such occur in sleep, others in the midst of many activities during the waking hours. Like I said, it could be, some people have reported to me that they were simply just like praying, or they went to church, or, they were, somebody told me recently that they were about to give a speech about law, because she is a lawyer, and suddenly it flashed on her something, unity, love, light, everything, and she's started saying, we are one, so no more injustice, and so on. Like, it's a beautiful speech. But see, these things are flooding our subconscious as long as there is permeability. And, the permeability can be enhanced by you willfully seeking. If you want the key to this, just seek. Seek and you shall find. So the approach is flexible and does not necessarily include the close encounter syndrome, as you're aware. So Ra, in a way, to me, is kind of guiding you to tell you, don't take it, as a close encounter type of thing, like UFOs landing and so on. More in this way. At least this is my interpretation. As always, if it resonates, hey, play with it. Don't even take it. Don't take it for granted. Just play with it. If it doesn't, then reject it. And let's move on.